Welcome to the Painter's Dialectic. I'm your host, Josh Green, a artist and art educator living in New York City, and this is the next Spiritual Friends artistic meditation group. And today is the Path of Prayer. So this month, on August 24th, 2025, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern, through Zoom, we are exploring the practice of prayer in the Western traditions. Together, we'll consider how prayer has served as a bridge between the worldly and the divine. We'll also explore art making as prayer. So I hope you enjoy it. It went really well today. Welcome, everybody. I'm happy to do our group meeting in August. And this month, we're going to explore the practice of prayer in the Western traditions. Once again, just like the last class where I talked about the ground of being or God or whatever you like to call it, I massively generalized it because it's so big and there's so much nuance between every tradition that you just kind of have to do that if you're going to talk about it. Same with prayer, big differences between every group. So I'm just going to try to generalize it and frame it in a practical way for you to just kind of get to the key ideas. So together we're going to consider how prayer has served as a bridge between the world and the divine realms. And also we're going to explore how we can incorporate art as a form of prayer. For those of you who are new or listening online, my name is Josh Green. I'm an artist and art educator in New York City, and I am certified to teach meditation through Tibet House here in Manhattan and also Dharma Moon. I am training to teach Western traditions, Western spiritual traditions through the Institute for Hermetic Studies, and I have an MFA from Alfred Dusseldorf in painting. So I have a website called theartisterrant.com and I have some online courses on there if you'd like to check it out. I also have a lot of videos on there and all these recordings are on there as well. And I have a student gallery. So if any of you are brave, you could submit an image that you'd want me to put into the gallery. And of course, we are doing this to support the IHS collection. Every group event, I ask you to please donate some money to help us establish the Institute for Hermetic Studies collection at the Weinberg Memorial Library on the campus of the University of Scranton. So you can do that in the email. I attached the link, and also on the podcast or the YouTube channels, I will have the link. And this could be any amount, $1, $5, $10. The reason we're making this, the Institute has a lot of very rare books. And by putting these books in a physical location, people would have access to them. Most of this information has been kept in private organizations or private collections, so it'd be made public through the interlibrary loan. So it's an extremely important project for the longevity of esoteric studies. Um, I'm going to give the philosophical ground for about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll do a 10-minute meditation today, and then we'll do some art making, and then we'll open into the group dialogue, and then we'll end with the dedication. This is the oil painting Monk by the Sea by Caspar David Friedrich in 1808. We talked about this last month, Mysterium Tremendum. When we're approaching the divine, we talked about this idea that the divine is a mystery. It's unknowable or transcendent. The experience of this is can provoke dread, majesty, or overpowering energy when approaching this mystery. And also, there's an aspect of fascination that draws the soul in almost magnetically through its beauty, its grace, or love. So, this unknowable and ineffable mystery magnetically moves us to seek answers, to question our reality and ourselves. So, this is really the beginning of the spiritual journey, is this you're drawn to this deep mystery, this feeling that there's something more. And this is exactly what spirituality is, the search for understanding oneself. of one's own being in relation to the physical or non-physical realities. And we could even refine this even more. We could just say spirituality is seeking to understand one's own mind. This is Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth, painted in 1948. And I think it evokes that sense of longing. So this a disabled person in a field, and she's far away from home. So according to this line of thought, spirituality begins as a curiosity that gains momentum over time. If the fascination with the mystery is strong enough, that magnetic sense of beauty, grace, or love, one begins to act quite differently. You see, most living beings think the best way to live is to avoid pain and to try to get comfortable, right? I definitely spend the majority of my day doing that. But this magnetic pull of the mystery offers a more interesting, kind, adventurous way of living by developing this deep curiosity. And it may become so intense that you may not care whether the object of this inquisition is painful or pleasant. You may stop caring if everything goes your way or is on your terms. You may start living passionately, fully, and we begin to realize that we can endure a lot of pain and pleasure for the sake of finding out who we are and what this world is. This is the painting The Incredulity of St. Thomas by Caravaggio, painted in 1602. This urge that goes against hedonia, right? We've talked about that every class, hedonia, which is a type of bondage based on controlling the subjective or internal events through external means, right? Getting my life into a certain shape, having these circumstantial things, having these material things, or even holding my mind in a certain shape for as long as I can, because that brings me more comfort, more pleasure, right? The hedonia. So this curiosity moves us closer to eudaimonia, controlling our wellness through self-knowledge and wisdom, right? That curiosity, we stop caring about our comfort all the time. We want to know what's beyond that fear, beyond that pain, or beyond that pleasure. We want to penetrate reality in ourselves. And we kind of feel this arising in the pauses in life. When there's not much going on, you might feel this question, is this all there is? You know, I heard my grandma say that a while ago. Is this it? Is this it? You know, is there more to life? Is there more to me in my mind? You know, do we really know it all? Do we really understand what the mind is, what consciousness is? Could there be more? And why is it so hard for us to open our mind to that possibility? What is the best way to live my life? What is a good life? What is death? Is it really the end? Is there survival of consciousness? What does it mean? So this is The Inspiration of St. Matthew by Caravaggio, painted in 1602. So prayer is the primary practice of Western religious and spiritual traditions for thousands of years, just as meditation has been a primary practice in the East. But really, there's not such a big difference between the two. So prayer, so here's the key definition. Prayer is an action that communicates between the human and divine or spiritual realms, between the physical and non-physical. So what we see here happening in this painting, we have a real person connecting with a non-physical being, right? This is the practice of prayer. And any action, right? Not actual praying with your hands in the right posture, anything can become prayer. That's the intention. So ultimately, prayer is a means of creating a relationship with some non-physical entity or reality. It could be God, Jesus, deities, saints, ancestors. Uh, there's a million things to choose from in each tradition, right? But some non-physical being or reality you're connecting with through this practice. So why do we pray? Well, one reason is for stuff. So in the top left corner, people in desperate need. When there's nothing they can do, they pray. Prayer is very natural, it's very instinctual. I'm sure we've all done it at some time, or maybe you've never done it, but then suddenly, life is going bad, or maybe your life is threatened. You may find yourself praying out of nowhere. It's very instinctual. It's probably the most natural of the spiritual practices, right? So we pray for stuff we need. We need some type of spiritual intercession in our life. We're calling out to some power greater than us to intervene, right? We pray for help. So in the top right corner, we see an AA meeting, right? We pray for help. We pray for the resolution to a personal problem, to get the strength to overcome these challenges we face. In the bottom left, we pray for health. You know, people facing life-threatening illnesses, um, prayer can be a source of comfort. Building that relationship with those beings or the other side can bring about a lot of peace. And then in the bottom right, we have a young monk praying, right? Praying for illumination, insight into the mysteries of creation, our place in the world, and our relationship to it all, what is and will be. So usually we pray in desperate times, in times of need, but prayer as a spiritual path, which is what we're talking about today, just like meditation can be a path, means developing a relationship with the spiritual realm or these spiritual entities on a daily basis. It's an ongoing relationship. My grandmother is 90 and she has a very strong devotional practice to Christ. And she says it's like she can feel him in the room. She can feel him physically touch her. And any problem she has, she just prays and it brings her peace. She's not dwelling in worry or dwelling in anxiety or depression about what has happened. It can become extraordinarily powerful if you do it on a daily basis. For practitioners, for people using prayer as a spiritual path, usually what they do is you have a spiritual ideal, something that you seek to achieve, right? Something that is worthy of immolation, something that you want to transform into. So here we have an Orthodox monk. You can see a bunch of skulls in this cave, and there is the ideal of Christ. He wants to become Christ, become Christ-like. That's the ideal. So you pick out an ideal, something that you would like to be, right? And that becomes a plan for your unfoldment, a way of you actualizing your potential, right? And you create a devotional practice to this ideal. You put up images in your home. You might build an oratory, a place of prayer in your home, a place of practice, a shrine, a tabernacle, and you have a consistent devotional practice daily towards this ideal through prayer. You're building this relationship. And this is how one becomes holy or sanctified while they're alive. That's the goal. So, in a lot of American Christianity and versions of Protestantism, you might hear they just want to get saved, right? Saved. But this is going beyond that. This is I want illumination. I want transformation. I want to become the ideal. I want to become fully holy. I want to become Christ-like. I want to become like whatever saint, whatever archetype you're picking. I want to embody that. I want to go beyond just being me. So, a holy person or a saint, whatever we want to call it, an adept, is a person's whose thoughts, words, and actions align and express their spiritual ideal. So in this way, it becomes more realistic. You might feel like, what does little old me have to do with that? Something so great, but you may have moments of holiness. And when I look at my grandmother's spiritual practice, I consider her a holy person. There's moments where she's not so holy, but and for the most part, I mean, she's pretty ideal. What she's done. My sister just had a child, and I see the incredible devotion that's come out of her and self-transcendence. And she's not even thinking of it in that way, but I see it. There's something holy about that happening. We can find this holiness in actions in all kinds of people around us. If we look for it, it's not so far away. And maybe there's been moments in your life where you achieved holiness for a moment, you know? But you have to know what your ideal is. And you align your thinking with that ideal. You align your speech with that ideal. You align your actions with that ideal. You align your life with that ideal. And it becomes a path of transformation. And so, sin, what it actually means is anything that deviates from that ideal, right? It's like I made mistakes. I'm coming from a place of ignorance. I had a lack of wisdom. I had a lack of love or compassion in that moment. If I had more wisdom, if I had more love, I wouldn't have made that mistake. And so you acknowledge that error and then you seek to correct it, just like um the alcoholics, right? They made a mistake. They're living in a way that's destroying themselves, and they're seeking to move towards their ideal of a sober person, right? So someone who's achieved this, someone who's a holy person, is worthy of admiration and emulation, right? So when you're picking an archetype, it might be easier to start off with someone who's actually lived recently, someone who you admire. And if you think of this as a kid, you've been doing this anyways. Some actor in a movie, a superhero, the cowboy, pop star, that became your archetype. They embody the ideals you wanted to be like. We do this all the time anyways. There's people we admire. And so by picking that archetype, you can move in that direction. So picking someone alive is really good, and then you could move to something more abstract. It's pretty hard. Last month we talked about the mystery. It's pretty hard to emulate the mystery. There's nothing. That's why someone human, someone who's living in the world is easier to emulate. All right, so speaking of that, let's talk about some of these archetypes over time. So all the ones I'm presenting, I'm just going to call them the messenger archetype. They represent a god, a deity, a non-physical being that links the spiritual and physical worlds. Basically, they're an embodiment of prayer, right? They're the messenger. So I have the Egyptian god Thoth there, Tahuti, one of the oldest ones, the scribe. Thoth was believed to have invented writing and maintaining records of the gods. Every divine action, law, or event was inscribed by him. We also have here Hermes and Mercury from the Greek and Roman traditions. The tricksters, the guide of souls, the psychopomp, the patron of merchants, the messengers, and thieves. He mediates between Olympus and earth, between mortals and the gods. He has the Caduceus, the staff with winged sandals symbolizing swift passage between realms, right? In the Abrahamic um, religions, we have Moses, Isaiah, Jesus, Muhammad, right? You wouldn't pray to Muhammad though. Um, they all stand as a messenger, receiving revelation and transmitting divine laws or guidance. In India, right? We have Buddha, Krishna, Narada, right? So Krishna acts as a messenger of the divine in the Bhagavad Gita. We have Naruto, a sage that travels between gods and humans, carrying songs, wisdom, sometimes stirring events. Buddha wasn't exactly a divine messenger, but he still created a path. Okay, so here we have the Mesopotamian. We have Nabu, the god of writing, the scribe, very much like Thoth in the Egyptians. And we have Papshukai, Papshukal, there we go. The messenger of the chief gods, often depicted with wings, just like Hermes or Mercury. In the Persian, we have Mithras and Zarathustra or Zoroaster. Mithras was the guardian of contracts, truth, the messenger of the cosmic. Zarathustra was the prophet bringing revelation to humankind. In the North and Germanic, we have Odin, Heimdall, Hermothor. So Odin was a seeker of wisdom. He also brought writing, runes, a mediator between realms. Heimdall was the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, the Bifrost. I lost my Mesoamerican ones, but these are the Aztec ones. These were also messenger gods here. In indigenous religions, the shaman was actually the mediator between the physical and spiritual realm. They had someone in the group who was doing this. And also animals were seen as that, the coyote, the raven, or in Africa, the spider. They carried the fire, language, culture, and divinity to the humans. So almost across every culture and all these times, we have this figure who's usually one of the primary focuses of devotional practice. What they have in common is mediation. They stand between opposites, between heaven and earth, life and death, gods and mortals. Communication, they brought the language, the law, the writing, the art, the prophecy, or the wisdom. They're liminal. They are boundary crossers, or tricksters, or shape shifters. And transmission or transformation, their message isn't just information, but has transformative power, liberation, salvation, order, or cultural renewal. So in the body, a lot of these people relate this to the nervous system as a messenger between the consciousness, right, this imaginal, non-physical world, and then the physical body, right? The nervous system is the messenger. So something you might have noticed, almost all of those were male figures. Of course, the obvious thing would be like patriarchal societies, but not all the cultures we mentioned were patriarchal. Especially the farther back you go in history, there's a lot of matriarchal societies or just either equal, especially Northern Europe, men and women were in charge until they got colonized by Rome and that Mediterranean culture. So usually the male messengers represent an active or energetic principle, speech, law, transition, movement between the worlds. They are the energy. And the female is the thing that shows up, the form of it, right? The embodiment, the receptive principle, the vision, the wisdom, the intuition, the message itself, the matter. So the male would be seen as the energy and the female would be seen as the matter. The male is usually undifferentiated and the female has a form. So it'd be like the male would be like the water and then the female would be like the plumbing. The plumbing gives it shape, gives it a network of movement, right? There's many female messengers or kind of like revelations embodied. Sophia, Holy Sophia, Maat, Mary, the Shekinah, Saraswati, or Tara. The female is also usually associated with the night, with soil, with dreams, intuition, gnosis, direct knowing, the soul, the subconscious, that which heals and regulates the body. The male is usually associated with day, light, the daily mind that thinks and struggles, prays, or change through willpower. So I also want to talk about how when you're on this path of prayer, how it matures. So there's four expressions of our relationship to the divine. So first we start out in the exoteric. So this is collective, educational, concerned with basic human interactions. Usually you'll hear things like thou shalt not, right? So we have people in church, we have people at the synagogue or the mosque, and someone's preaching to them. And their experience of the divine is mediated through a church, through a priest, through some speaker, right? It's not direct. It's far away, and they're usually being told what not to do, the Ten Commandments, you know, kind of a relationship. As you practice, these are home oratories, these prayer stations, right? You may move into an esoteric practice. So while you're praying in the church or in the synagogue or wherever, that experience is personal. So that is esoteric. So this personal spiritual practice is rooted in the exoteric, but it can lead you to deeper spirituality. So now the divine is becoming your friend, or the archetype is becoming your friend. You talk to them on a daily basis. Now, moving beyond this, we have the initiatic level. So this is transformative. This is where you're actually trying to change yourself or your life. You might be viewing the obstacles in your life as moments of transformation. So it takes negative things and transforms them into healing. Obstacles are used for growth. This usually involves small, highly dedicated groups, secret orders, or whatever, or initiated bodies within the organization. So here in the top left, we can see a Western esoteric initiation room. And then we have some Indian initiation going there. And then we have a Freemason initiation using symbols, these small occult spaces with a few people. And then one of the highest stages is the mystical practice, direct experience, right? Direct identification. So in the initiatic, you may be identifying during the ritual or momentarily with your archetype. Like, I am Christ. I am this. And you embody it for a moment. But once you move into the mystical practice, you're creating a lasting union with that. You have become your ideal, right? You have achieved it. And so there's this complete identification with the divine. I am that I am. I am that which is becoming. This state is one of constant internal prayer. So there's traditions of perpetual prayer where you're in a state of prayer all day and all night, and it's become something habitual that's in you all the time. You're never forgetting. That connection is constant. And your embodiment of faith, hope, and love and charity. You embody the ideals. So that is the complete path of prayer in a very generalized way. Every tradition will be very different and nuanced. There's a lot of different practices, but it's time for us to move on to practice now. And I picked something that I think you guys wouldn't even notice as a prayer, but it kind of brings together all the practices we've done over the months. So let's take our posture. And if you want to turn away from the camera or turn off your camera during this period, go ahead. Get comfortable. So we're seated just like this sculpture. Our knees are at a 90-degree angle. Our back is straight. Our stomach is open. Our chest is opening. We're going to let the palms of our hands rest naturally on our thighs. We're going to slightly tuck our chin so that our neck is straight. And we're going to just start stabilizing our mind, lightly gazing off in front of us and just focusing on our breath around our stomach. The soothing rise and fall of the breath. letting all our worries and concerns of the day drop off, and settling into the body. Now, through this practice, if you like to hold your hands in a specific way, or you feel moved to do something, just do it. Prayer is very natural and unstructured. So now come in to yourself, and you can close your eyes if you like. And we want to call up particular errors, mistakes, and you want to consciously admit to these wrongdoings verbally, right? Whether they were actually wrong or not. Just things that you feel were errors that took you away from your ideal. You state them verbally and you ask for assistance from illumined beings of the past, the present, and future, or your archetype. You ask for help for you to move forward on your path and to avoid such behaviors in the future. And it's important you can visualize this. You can feel it. It's important to have emotional element too. So it's very alive, not just something mechanical, something alive, something that you're experiencing. Okay, now let's move to verbally stating all those who've gone before you on this path, whatever path you're on, giving thanks for their effort, dedicating their lives, maybe suffering attacks or martyrdom, this journey to perpetuate this spiritual knowledge so that you can benefit from today. The books you've read, the teacher who taught you to read and write, anything that you've gained from your family, all these people who've assisted you. It's not something we do on our own. You can state their names out loud. You can stay in classes, lectures, writing, and express gratitude for their sacrifices. And now we can move to expressing our desire to achieve illumination, to achieve perfection of consciousness, so that we can assist others in alleviating their ignorance and suffering and aid them on their path to be truly beneficial in this world. Now bring your awareness to your heart area. It doesn't have to be your literal heart. It could be in your chest or your upper stomach. And imagine a symbol that is significant to you of your ideal, the Holy Grail, a clear diamond, the Sacred Heart, whatever it is, this beautiful symbol there. And imagine bright, brilliant rays of light are expanding out from you and blessing everything around you. And this expansion can be very far outside the building you're in. And you can imagine streams of white Red, blue, green, and yellow light streaming from this heart center, blessing everything as far as it can reach. And feel this sensation, feel the emotion. And now with his heart fully opened, let's imagine a scene with a table in a beautiful environment with all sorts of foods, drinks, gifts, precious items, and objects of all kinds surrounding you. Really be there. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Really immerse yourself in this environment. And now invite these illumined beings, these saints, these holy ones, these righteous people, gods and goddesses, your personal deity, invite them in to this banquet you've prepared for them. Offer them all there is and more, and see them accepting it and enjoying it. Invite in angels, archangels, planetary angels. Invite your family, your friends, your coworkers, your enemies, and those who you don't even notice throughout the day, all the people you're indifferent to. Invite them in to be strengthened, to be healed. Invite them to this feast. You can invite animals. You can invite elemental beings. You can invite the demons of hell, souls that are lost, souls in purgatory. Invite them all there to be satisfied, to find peace, to find happiness and illumination. This banquet flowing from you to all beings of all realms, of all dimensions. And now we're going to let go of this dream, and you can open your eyes slightly if it helps, and gently open your awareness like the aperture of a camera. Begin to feel your body as a cloud of sensation, expanding into the space around you. Just being, just resting in pure awareness, opening very gently, and just rest in this stillness, in this silence, in this spaciousness. Just letting go and letting be. Now slowly come back and affirm to yourself that you want to continue down this spiritual path, this path of return. Ask these illumined beings for assistance in everything that you do. A desire to spiritually awaken and achieve illumination. So slowly come back, open your eyes, feel free to stretch. And we can begin to slowly transition into the art practice now. I recommend doing automatic writing as a type of prayer. You could just naturally let this writing flow out of you. Um, you could move directly into an image. If you have an archetypal image that you'd like to be like, you could begin creating that if something popped up in the meditation. But this object, you want to spontaneously make it with a sense of devotion, a sense of trying to connect. And that way it's a form of prayer. And then you could hang that up, put it on your fridge later. I have some examples here of things I've done after meditations. Can be very abstract, intuitive. Just trying to capture a feeling I had. Even this painting here, I would consider a prayer, devotional image. Capo, I know you said you have to leave early while they're working. If you'd like to make a statement about the practice of prayer, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I have about another 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm also making art here. I'm writing. Got me going here.
Great, then carry on. So let's go for about 10 more minutes. 5 more minutes. All right, put the highlights in the eyes. Draw your fingernails. Finishing it up. Oh. All right, if you guys could turn your faces back on, let me know that you're there. All right, we got Till. Reem and Capo, are you guys there? Got Capo. Reem, you there? You go to sleep? We lost Reem. And Kenny had to go.
Here,
Kenny.
I just can't figure out how to
Oh,
start.
there
Here,
you
here.
are.
All right.
Hey, all right, we're all back. Kenny Kenny had to go to a baby shower.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
uh, well, so you want to have some artwork they'd like to share? Or this one could remain private? Anybody? Okay.
I'll share.
Okay.
So I did automatic writing first, which I won't like read through, but basically just I had very strong memories of like being in the woods when I was a kid, and specifically like kind of like ghost stories and stuff that my friends would tell each other. And I think that I mean I remember stuff from like when I was like a teenager even, and working at summer camps and stuff, like being really immersed in nature and kind of sharing like supernatural experiences with people. Like the ghost stories kind of really turn into something that feels very real. Um, and so then I did a drawing it started out kind of just being like the woods. It looks better in person, I promise. I just used a lot of chalk pastel and like blended, and then if you can make things out, that's great. If you can't, oh well, I guess. I tried to include like ferns and oh, what are those flowers that grow in water? They're like not crocuses, but they have little purple blossoms. And then it's really, really hard to see, but when I was a kid, there was an American Girl doll named Kaya who was like the indigenous um historical doll from that set of toys. And I never had her, but I read books that were her story. And one of the, and forgive me, I don't remember what tribe she was supposed to be from, but like there were these depictions of like these mystical spirits that lived in her world that were these small stick figures, like tiny little humans, and they're very dark, and they can like watch you from the woods at night. And when I was a kid, that was like such a like I believe they were real. Like it was like a really really cool part of the book for me. So I also included little people, like tiny little shadow stick figures kind of like peeking out of the woods.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else?
Yeah, okay, so because I might be leaving soon, so I'll give it a
Okay.
shot. Yeah, so I maybe share a little bit about the prayer in general, because I wasn't much of a prayer person, as I said before. I started more on the Eastern side of things with a lot of mantras and meditation and things like that. So prayers didn't necessarily come easy to me. So basically, my experience for at least for me to get into it was to find an existing prayer that resonated with me, like the Liturgy of Hermes from the IHS, or even the Jesus Prayer, or something like the Fatiha for those who are close to Muslims, which is the opening prayer. So I started with something that resonated with me, but as I pray more, then it became more and more spontaneous, where I don't have to think about the word and things started flowing. But first, I started somewhere because it wasn't something or a tradition that I was very used to. So just kind of a general uh, suggestion for people who maybe are on my side like me, where prayer didn't come easy initially, but that was a way for me to ease myself into it. The general suggestion, and then for the art, I'm not much for an artist really, so I lean more on the writing. So the close to the end of the meditation, when you directed us to kind of expand our awareness, I think the feeling I have, what came to mind is like I was made of a bunch of infinite particles which could expand, and if I can switch my awareness or point of view from one particle point of view and from a point of view of the whole thing. So as we say, as above, so below. So I'm made of these infinite particles, but as a being, I'm also one particle of the whole, divine. And then so the intuition I got is that I have access to the whole perspective as well, but right now I'm just that single particle point of view. So as above, so below, as within, so without. Kind of got this kind of general particle, this two different point of views of being a part of the whole as a particle, but also all me made of this particle is also part of the divine, something like that. And then the last part also was, where when we invited everybody, right? When you invited, between quote, your enemies, your friends, the archetypes, the divine beings, the illuminated being, and all of them. I think what came to mind again as inviting everybody is as we grow, we tend to get a clearer perspective or perceptions of people motivation around us. So what came to me is that probably use that understanding of humans in general to kind of help them along their path as well, in terms of understanding that uh, basically most of it has come from the general ignorance, our own ignorance and their ignorance, as you said before, that initially we tend to try to push away what we perceive as difficult or harmful, and then cling to what's more pleasure and more happiness. So we have to understand that ourselves and other people are coming from the same perspective, because initially for me, it was to be put off by perceiving or whatever I think I perceive from them. But that by using this meditation and also the help of all these illuminated beings to find ways to make it work for the people or whoever we perceive as having harmed us, or people who think we harm them as well, right? So that's usually we create what we call the enemies, and I don't think I, I usually think that I have enemies. It's just that a misunderstanding. So rather than being put off by this new understanding and perceptions of people and their motivations, use these archetypes and partially this meditation to see how we can bring more understanding and more knowledge around us. Yep, that was my experience with this little practice.
Thank you, Capo.
You're welcome. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to take off. I have a birthday to go to for my daughter. So it was really nice meeting everybody. I enjoyed it very much. It was great. I'm not much of an artist or writer. I didn't even have been thinking that I could even write a paragraph in such a short amount of time. And I think now I think I can write at least probably a few pages if I wanted to. But that was pretty amazing. So thank you everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Capo. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, bye bye.
All right. Reem, you look like you got something to say.
I do. You know me so well. So I just wanted to thank you, Josh. That was such a profound um, prayer / meditation, and thank you for all of that information on like from starting from the definition of prayer, which I always thought of as talking to God, and meditation was listening to God. And for me, this was something I've been looking forward to for some time because I grew up in a very traditional Muslim family, Sunni Muslim. I've now since found my way into more like a Sufi mystical Islam, but there was always this idea of you pray 5 times a day and you do it in a very specific way. And the prayers aren't anything that you make up yourself. It's a very like Cabo just mentioned, the Fetha, the opening prayer. And so it's a prayer that you memorize and you recite. And so it was, you got to pick in certain areas which prayers you recited, but none of it was, free flowing. It was all very kind of similar to kind of reading a hymn book, I guess, if you will. So for me, I didn't feel as connected going through um, some of those prayers, any of the prayers actually. And they were 5 times a day. And my upbringing was such that, we were constantly asked, did you say your prayers? Did you say your prayers? It's time for this prayer. It's time for that prayer. And I struggled with that as a child because I thought, if God is all um, knowing, all capable, um, can do anything, what does God need with my prayers? And I'm just a 11-year-old or whatever it was. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that the prayers weren't for God, they were for me to feel closer to God. And then I began to kind of question if my reciting these things would help get me closer to God. And I was always troubled by how reciting these prayers didn't make me feel any more connected necessarily, or at least not directly that I could measure at that time. So, and it's something that I still kind of think about and try to figure out. And I think that's why the prayer that you led us in was so incredibly powerful for me, because I was sobbing. I was absolutely sobbing through a good portion of it. I felt so connected, which was missing for me in a lot of years. And I'm going to cry just thinking about it. But when you said, like, create a banquet, and to give thanks and to feel connected and to, ask um, all of the angels and prophets and gods and your friends, your family, your enemies, have them all come and partake in this. And it was so moving. And I recognize that that's what I've been wanting. That's what I've been needing. That's what I thought prayer was supposed to be. So this has been one of the most profound experiences of my life. I just want to thank you.
Right.
I am so incredibly moved, because I felt like a door had opened that I had been knocking on for a very long time. So um, I don't have a picture, but I did write all of this down. I did do some journaling, and um, I don't know how you came about it, or how exactly this. I mean, I know that everything happens for a reason, and this is something you've been working on. It's been in the years in the making, right? All of your knowledge has kind of come to this culmination, but um, I can't help but think how powerful this would be if there was a larger audience, and if we could all do this and all feel so connected, all feel this oneness. It's just exceptional. And I'll stop ranting now, but thank you.
You're very welcome, and I'll write that one out for you. And none of that stuff's mine. That's tradition. These are things handed down. That's why it's so special. It's thousands of years old. None of it's mine. None of these ideas are mine. I'm just curating ideas together. That's all I'm doing. I'm just a curator. Um, I want to go to Till before I explain that prayer. But Till,
Just want to show what I
yeah,
made. Um, so basically, just a picture
okay.
of like a surface of
Mm-hmm.
water,
Mm-hmm.
and that is well, it's like a surface, yeah, with blue and green. And if you look at a pond, or if you look at an ocean, you have all sorts of colors, um, like the algae and the flow of the water, and it's very beautiful actually. And kind of it inspires um, like it inspires like an open surface where there's where you can imagine different things happening.
So what do you think drew you to draw a surface of anything that you could draw?
It's like oh well,
Yeah.
um, it's like an open sort of plane, which I find very beautiful and inspiring. And you can draw anything on an open surface, you know. It's like open to the imagination.
So like all this surface of water, all these shapes are changing and coming and going.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's more like you know you mentioned it's like energy that that kind of gives an impetus um to to what becomes shape. Maybe like that, yeah. It's like one component,
I think you got it. I think you got the idea
something like that.
completely. Yeah,
It's like one
absolutely.
small part, yeah, like one small like tiny picture in the whole, yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, I think I think considering prayer in this way is perfect for artists. As devotional, as ideal, and a lot of us doing art, it's pretty thankless and a burden most of the time. It's very much devotional. Um, and yeah, if you and think about all the artists you've worshipped over the years, the archetypes or books, these things you're seeking to become or to bring into yourself. Um, but like Reem, I went back to my childhood and I thought about the kind of stale and rigid and sometimes manipulative or troubling Christian environment I grew up in. And it really just turned me off to everything, right? But I think prayer really works when it's alive. If it's just rote memorization and repeating, it's not a living prayer. There has to be this emotional element in it. And a lot of prayers, up until recently, involve some type of visualization aspect or some type of imaginary aspect to it. Um, but anything can become it as long as that intention's there of connecting and perpetual prayers. Another thing that I like, this is an Orthodox prayer rope, but rosaries and things like that. If you have trouble meditating, if you're new or whatever, just having this little bead, right, does the same thing as early Buddhist meditation, the shamatha training where you train a focus. That sensory aspect helps you remain focused on the meditation. And also, one thing they'll do is they might have a sort of mantra or saying that goes along with it. So each bead you may repeat that in your head. And I found those very powerful, especially if there's something you want to work on, or something you're trying to overcome, like the alcoholics, or if you're in a time of need, and you get stuck in that cycle of worrying and dread and doom. This can be a very powerful tool, very simple to just overcome that worry. Just saying the mantra over and over kind of cancels out that worry pattern. So I think there's tools like this that are great. You could think of even painting or drawing. There's moments where you lose yourself in it. You get into a kind of flow state, right? That's talked about a lot in higher spiritual practices. It's a way of dissolving the self. And a lot of practitioners want to get where they can do that throughout the daily life, where they're so in life, they're so into what's happening that there's not really a self. The day just kind of flies by, and there's this effortlessness. In China, they call it the Wu Wei. It's a big thing. This effortlessness, because there's none of you blocking what's happening. If you want, I can break down what happened in that prayer. Um, Today was kind of for Reem. Reem was the first one that kind of got excited about it. Reem, would you like that?
Yes, please. That would be fantastic. I would
If you
love to.
wanted to do that more traditionally, I didn't do this, but they do an energetic purification before they do that, where you're grounding yourself. So you could add that, like the thing I talked about with the shower and visualizing grounding yourself. But like I said, this is a devotional prayer, so you have to have an archetype, some type of archetype, being, saint, holy person that you're working with. And so the omission of errors, right? So you have your spiritual idea, your spiritual ideal, and anytime you're deviating from that, you want to be aware of it, right? You're noting, I don't like where these thoughts are taking me. I don't like where these words are taking me. And traditionally, you do this at the end of the day before you go to bed. That goes all the way back to the Pythagoreans would do that. They do it inventory of the day. Very old practice. And that was supposed to eliminate future karma, keeping things from forming into habits that are subconscious, right? Because you're taking inventory of the day, you're never letting these bad habits form. You're taking them out of the root. It's like weeding the garden. Um, you know, and I think doing this, putting this practice, sometimes you get a little neurotic where you get a little too picky, where you're kind of forgetting that you're a human being and that you do human stuff. But like, I think as long as it's the big things that could get bad, like sure I'm eating a lot of junk food lately, or I'm beginning to drink a lot more lately, or I said some really mindful stuff that probably hurt someone, or stuff like that. Keeping that from becoming a pattern and reorienting yourself on the ideal. And also in that part, you're not alone, right? If you're just in this physical realm, you're on your own. But once you reach out to this metaphysical beings, now you have assistance from something higher than you, from something more powerful. And I think that's where you release the anxiety. Like today, the manifestation stuff's really big. Manifestation is just petitionary prayer. It's prayer. That's it. But they're not calling it prayer, so it's kind of hip. It's just prayer. You're visualizing what you want, handing that over to a higher force, and then it's coming to that's prayer. So having this relationship with these human beings, and then being grateful, right? Realizing that sometimes the ego will co-opt its own self-transcendence. I transcended myself. Great, I'm the shit. The ego's taking credit for these things. So you're remembering that you're part of a lineage that thousands of people over countless time have been writing books and teaching people. It's an ongoing effort. And so by being grateful for everyone that's helped you and all kinds of things, the people who taught you to read and write, no one ever thinks about them, but how different would your life be if it wasn't for them? There's all these people that have made little contributions to you. So real gratitude and sacrifice. People you don't even know have sacrificed for you greatly. And then reorienting on your goal, not just salvation, but illumination and perfection of consciousness. Aim high, and if you miss, you still probably get farther than you intended, you know? And then focusing on the heart. So it's not just solely an intellectual thing. We're developing our emotions too, our emotional intelligence, feeling that profound love glowing from the heart, right? And blessing people. And then we moved into pretty much, which is a meditation, a loving kindness meditation, where you send out love to these different degrees of beings that are very easy to love, and it gets harder and harder. And mainly that's for you to remove the things that are blocking you from being generous, being loving. And in Judaism, it's called Hesed. That's right before you enter in the eternity, you develop Hesed. In Christianity, we call it mercy, this love in action. You know, God have mercy on me, have mercy, right? That's the love in action. And this type of prayer, I would call it an initiatic prayer, where you're taking on the divine aspects, right? Through this visualization, you're becoming the ideal. You're the one handing out mercy. You're the one handing out love, and you get to embody that archetype for a moment and simulate it in your nervous system. It's very powerful. It's the initiatic prayers are transformative. That's the point. To open up these blocks, these barriers in your mind, um, by identifying as something greater than yourself. Um, in some traditions called assuming the God form. You may, whatever that thing is, you may act it out for a period of time. I have one of the friends in the Hermetic group is a prison guard, and his job is terrifying. And he would assume the God form of a powerful being to help him fake it till he makes it, you know? And now that people have been responding very different, he's able to do his job better because he's assuming that archetype. So you could pick something that's good for the moment and assume it and become it. That's initiatic, that's transformative. Using the challenges in your life as a type of growth by assuming the God form. You know, if you're, Rosalie, you're about to see patients, there may be a lot of doubt. Can I really handle this? You could pick an archetype that's very competent and has helped a lot of beings, and you act that out, or till if you're scared of writing, right? Or you something about you take on the archetype of the scribe, this perfect writer. And then the open awareness is the most important part. Is if we think of like the TV, the drama we're living in, we're the images on the screen, but in that moment of open awareness, we become the TV, right? This thing that's emitting, or the projector of the in the cinema, right? Losing the identity, losing the drama, losing the story, and we're this pure awareness that is never touched by anything that is outside of good or evil, right or wrong, or all our mistakes. It's just this pure awareness emitting the I am that I am. That's the mystical practice. I am that I am. You know, Kappa talked about that identification with God. That's it, this emanation, this life and light emitting out. That's the mystical part. And then we reconfirm our practice at the end that we want to continue down this path. That's the structure of it. It's a lot. It's jam-packed with, you could break down just a part of that and have it be a practice for a while. But I wanted to, it kind of brings together everything we've been talking about over the months. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think as somebody who grew up without a archetype that anyone in my family was really devoted to, I I don't really know where I stand with this. Like, I mean, I'm like interfaith. Like, my dad is Catholic, and it's funny. My mom, who is Jewish, whenever she would leave the house, I feel like my dad would like sneak in some lessons about like Christ or the saints or something. I almost have like a schizophrenic idea of religion. Because I really believed him. But then my mom, she has so much religious trauma on her side that, we didn't have much that we were devoted to. But I think what I'm trying to understand is like, I think people can be like devoted to like a concept, like just the concept of mercy or the concept of compassion, and really like touch those in a way, even though they don't have like a face or a story. But I don't know. I ended this prayer. It was like me at a table eating like pistachios and chocolates with a bunch of angels. They were just maybe surface level. Like it was comfortable and it was warm. And there were demons too. And I don't know. I'm not sure I fully like felt the radiance yet, but yeah.
That's a tough. I mean, really, if you do that loving kindness type of practice, it's a serious practice that can take years to open up to all types of beings. And we just did a crash course, quick thing, but the Catholics are loaded. They got a whole catalog of saints, a whole catalog of archetypes and stuff. But if identifying as a human doesn't work for you, then pick something more abstract. Like Hesed would be the Jewish one, right? Hesed, that divine mercy, that divine grace is an energy. Um, in astrology, that would be Jupiter, right? Jupiter would be that. Um, I have I've been doing Sophia. Here's Sophia. And they kind of been interested in that divine feminine quality. And now I'm just thinking of it as the springtime, right? When this renewal, that's what women do is they renew life. The fresh blossoms, the fresh trees, um, this kind of potential in the earth and the soil is now how I'm kind of seeing Sophia. But it can grow, it can become very abstract and philosophical. It's your devotional thing, it's your archetype, not something oppressed on you.
Well, I just wanted to say that for me, in terms of anyone I think who's grown up in the Muslim tradition, there was a big departure from, worshiping idols
Yeah.
or having visual images within a mosque. I was actually just in Turkey. I just got back, as you know, from Hagia Sophia, and it was exceptional to me. This was it was built in 200 AD, and it had been originally a church, and then shifted to a mosque, and then back to a church, and then now a mosque. And I don't know how many more times. I think it was only 4 times. It could have been more, that it shifted back and forth. But what I found to be extraordinary, and some of the artwork that you had showed, there's mosaics of in the Hagia Sophia. But one of the things that I found so beautiful is that when it became a mosque, they didn't destroy the mosaics, they kept them. And then when it became a church, they didn't take down all of the geometric artwork that the Muslims put up. And it was a very kind of a peaceful, if you will, takeover and changeover from one to the next. But it was done with respect. And you feel that in that building. And I thought of you because I knew you were working on the Sophia, on the wisdom, but it's more a feeling than a visual image that I get when I think of mercy In Arabic, it's called rahma. Um, you said it's hasad in
Hesed, yeah,
so that concept, grace, I think it's also
yeah.
could be um, that concept. I will often think of, a mother and a child,
Mhm.
nurturing that, loving that, mercy, that, unconditional love. Um, so I don't have like a direct image of, say, a specific person. Um, although I have seen images of Mary in all forms, I think just the idea of, the Virgin Mary is a profound one for me. But what was elusive for me is this ability to connect, because prayer always meant to me, um, very formal, very specific, regimented routine, um, kind of like, washing your dishes. You do them. You're not doing them with joy. You're doing them to get them done. And this type of prayer that you introduced us to is something that I'm going to continue to take with me. Um, Especially the idea of, when you make it so tangible, of having these people who have given you so much throughout your life. Like, I was naming my first grade teacher, second grade teacher, all throughout, imagining them. It makes it so much more tangible, and you can actually um, feel it. And maybe that's what I was missing through the structured prayer. But the other thing that you mentioned with the rosary beads, um, Muslims do that too. We have rosary beads, and it's kind of similar to what Sufis do with zikr, where you say the same thing over and over again, and you can swirl and whirl, as I saw the whirling dervishes do in Turkey. And the idea is that everything revolves, everything, rotates, moves. Circles are infinite, and the idea of stages of development moving in that way. And the rosary bead is also round, and you kind of, that same concept of going about something over and over again. And I think that the Hindus have like the word mantra, where you say the word over and over again. Sufis will say, a name of God over and over again. One, my favorite is God is love, Wadud, and you just say Wadud, Wadud, Wadud over and over again, to the point where you lose the sound almost, and it becomes something else, and you fall into a trance, which is exceptional. But, I just am so grateful for this experience. And this is something that I definitely want to take with me. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it right to my phone.
You're welcome. And I know with Islam, yeah, you can't have any archetype because that's idolatry, but there is a system of pure geometry
Yes.
that relates to levels of consciousness that I can show you. Hesed would be the four. It would be a square. That's Hesed. And the messenger archetype is a hexagon, or the Star of David. That's six. The pentagon is the adept, the saint. So there is through geometry of the compass, there's a whole system of archetypes that has no images. But
Wow.
I'll send you the that meditation. All right, guys. So let's wrap it up. Let's bring ourselves back one more time. And all the benefits we've reaped today, all the effort that all these people have made over lifetimes, for the information that I've curated, and all the benefits that you felt from these practices because of their efforts. May this love, this care, this hesed, this mercy flow outwards, igniting the hearts of all beings, all those beings, the angels, the demons, all the ones we thought of, illuminating endless dawns. The dawn is the rising of the spiritual awakening, illuminating endless dawns. And thank you, everyone.